Hey, church family, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we continue to pray for the recovery of our country. Now, it was back in 1990 as internet-based discussion groups became a growing trend. This is when one attorney named Mike Goodwin began to realize that the longer a discussion continues online, the more likely it is that one person will eventually compare the ideas of the other to Hitler. That's right. And as a result of this observation, Mike Goodwin created what's known now as Goodwin's Law of Nazi Analogies, which is simply stated in this way. As online discussion grows longer, the probability of a comparison involving Nazis or Hitler approaches 1. We might restate Goodwin's law in this way. It's not uncommon for political arguments that occur online to eventually devolve into baseless comparisons to Hitler's National Socialist German Workers' Party. And with that being the case, we should take a moment to recap the actual positions of Hitler's party so that we can avoid making this unfair comparison as we engage in political conversations. It'll first help us to remember that the Nazi Party was opposed to capitalism. The fact of this is actually found in the name of their political movement, which again was called the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi for short. Simply put, Hitler was the leader of a political party that set out to solve their economic depression by replacing the capitalist system of Germany with the totalitarian control of a national socialist system. With that being the case, we shouldn't be surprised to learn that the National Socialist German Workers' Party then set out to solve the economic problems that were occurring in Germany by redistributing the wealth of those who had more money. It's for this reason that Hitler required all Jews in both Germany and Austria to register all of their property assets. And afterwards, as you might guess, the Jewish citizens who were under the control of the Nazi Party, those Jews were forced into the highest tax bracket, regardless of their income. And in this way, we can see how Hitler was redistributing wealth through taxation. Not only that, but this also helps us to see that the Nazi Party was actually promoting one race while demonizing another. In this specific case, these Germans were promoting the Aryan race above every other race. And then at the same time, they were also engaging in the demonization of another race, namely the Jews, and they were blaming the Jews for all of Germany's economic problems. One propaganda poster from 1933 presented the Nazi point of view with perfect clarity with the following statement. The poster read, "Down with Judah. Adolf Hitler's Third Reich wants social justice because big Jewish capitalism is the worst enemy of this Reich and its Führer." Wow, that's quite the poster. This poster was promoting social justice as a way to demonize capitalists, especially Jews. Now, speaking of propaganda posters, the Nazis were all about controlling the media. As a matter of fact, when Hitler took power in 1933, the Nazis controlled less than 3% of Germany's newspapers. But then after taking control, they eliminated the multi-party political system, and afterwards they then began to shut down hundreds of newspapers which were produced by the outlawed political parties. And those who stood with the Nazi Party, well, they would oftentimes break into opposing political party offices, and they would destroy printing presses and newspapers, all in an attempt to control the media. And listen, the Nazi Party not only did everything they could to control the media, but they also used gun control laws in order to keep people from rising up against them. This actually all started in 1931 when the federal government there in Germany, they set out to stop the Nazi uprising by forcing every citizen to register their guns. But then in 1933, after Hitler gained political power over Germany, the Nazi Party then suspended the constitutional right to bear arms, and then they used all of the federal records that had been gathered a few years prior, and they used those records to go and seize the guns previously owned by law-abiding citizens. Now, as we consider this high-level snapshot of the Nazi Party, we must agree that it would be unfair to compare a political leader to Hitler, and it would be unreasonable to compare a political party to the Nazis. Well, that is, unless their political agenda includes the control of the media, the control of guns, along with the control of individual wealth through the redistribution of wealth according to economic socialism. You know, if you see a political party that lines up with these things, if you see them pushing forth this agenda while simultaneously blaming one race of people for all of the problems happening in their country, well, then this might be enough evidence to actually make the comparison correctly. Now, with the election right around the corner, I encourage every believer to avoid making the same mistakes that the church in Germany made as they sat back and in some cases even supported the rise of the Nazi Party. I encourage you to consider the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German pastor who gave his life opposing the Nazis. Bonhoeffer described the outcome of this political party by declaring this. He says, with the tools of democracy, democracy was murdered and lawlessness made legal. Raw power ruled, and its only real goal was to destroy all other powers besides itself. In other words, the National Socialist German Workers' Party used the democratic process of Germany to destroy the democratic process in Germany. And at the end of the day, they set out to destroy everything else that refused to submit to their authority, including the church. Not only that, but remember, the race that they demonized ended up being murdered by the millions. Pastor Bonhoeffer also encouraged the church to then rise up against the Nazis by declaring this. He says, we must finally stop appealing to theology to justify our reserved silence about what the state is doing. For that is nothing but fear. Open your mouth for the one who is voiceless. For who in the church today still remembers that it's the least of the Bible's demands in times such as these? Christian, listen, if you see a political party pushing forward socialism, gun control, media control, coupled with the demonization of one race, well, it's time to take a stand. It's time to take a stand because, listen, if history repeats itself, well, then we know what's coming next. With that, I encourage every Christian, let's continue fighting the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God.